good. For a week.
Now oil is the lanolin, and two of you rub your hands in that brown stuff. That's not lanolin. So, go and watch Jill, and we only have about 10 minutes max. And steam us back to the As I say, merino, $50 to $55. As I say, a merino fleece, $50 to $55.
Oh, hi there folks, how are we now? All good? Enjoyed your afternoon?
Brilliant.
That's great. Well, what I'm doing here is spinning. Now, I'm not as good at spinning yarns as Lindsay is, but he can't spin this yarn, so that's one I've got up on him. Now folks, if you look down below, you'll see my foot is what powers the wheel, for those of you that can see. So that treadling motion, working away there with the foot, keeps the wheel running. If I'm to stop that motion, of course the wheel will stop. So there's no electricity in the wheel at all. It's all done by the motion of my foot, that movement. And as I treadle up and down, that pushes the big rod there up and down, which in turn forces the big wheel round. The big wheel, as you can see, is attached to the smaller wheel by this cord here. The yarn that I'm making goes through a small hole in that wheel, comes out this side here, and then the hooks are just used for moving it backwards and forwards across this piece of bobbin as we fill it up. So a flick of the wheel to get started, and then just working at a speed that suits your individual self, so you get a nice even rhythm going, and then it's just a matter of controlling the fibres, drawing them through my finger and thumb there to try and attain the thickness that I want, and trying to keep it reasonably even. However, that's not always possible with uncarded, uncombed wool, because sometimes you'll get little seeds coming through, or perhaps a little short cut of wool. In the event that it had been combed or carded, then you wouldn't be having those pieces coming through. However, we don't spend any time in preparation due to the fact that we're really only just showing you how the spinning process happens. It's actually quite therapeutic, just sitting here. Once you know how to spin, I do believe while you're learning it's extremely frustrating. You get big thick bits and thin bits, and it breaks and the wheel goes backwards and all sorts of things happen. But it's like when you've learnt to ride a bike, even if you haven't done it for years, you usually come back to it without too much trouble. So I don't even remember learning to spin. My grandmother was a spinner, and I guess from the time I was old enough to sit on her knee, she probably treadled for me and I worked the fibres. So there we are. Now in the event that it breaks, we've got a problem. Children, we've got a problem. It's broken, what are we going to do?
Twist it, like untwist it into the...
Didn't want to do that. Any other suggestions? How would you fit?
Tie it to that.
Tie it? But then it won't go through that little hole there if I tie it. Who believes in magic? You do? Any other children believe in magic? Yes? No? You don't know? Well, let's see what we can do. Now it's true, isn't it, that I've got two pieces, one in that hand, one in that hand? All agree?
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to watch how I'm going to join it together. Do you believe I can? Which bit are you watching? You've got to watch that wheel going round and round. Is it going round and round? Hey, look at this. Look what's happened. Somehow it got joined together.
You tied it.
No, I didn't tie it. That's just because it's twisting. You weren't paying enough attention. You can't tell me what happened. Oh, folks, it's quite simple. What we do, of course, when it breaks, we tease out a little bit here, just so that we've got some exposed ends of fibres. Then we lay it in there like that. Now you watch this piece very closely, especially children that are up the front here, and you'll see that those fibres that I teased out latch onto that thread that I've already got. And there we go, it's joined on. Away we go again. Now the reason that that happens is due to the makeup of the woolen fibre. So if we look at a woolen fibre under the microscope, we can actually see that it's made up of all these little patterns, and every fibre is slightly different. That's another fibre going through there. But wool is a protein fibre grown by cell production. So each one of those little cells there, or each one of those little patterns, is a cell. If we take one of those cells, doesn't matter which one, and we further magnify it like that, so we make it really big, we can see that around the outside edge there's lots of little scales. Now they're like the scales on a fish. Anybody ever felt a fish, scales on a fish? A bit rough, aren't they, if you run your hand across them? Well, wool can be exactly the same, because those little scales stick out just a little bit. Now some people say, oh, I can't wear wool, it makes me feel itchy all over. Well then I suggest you're wearing the wrong kind of wool. Because if you were to wear merino wool, which is the little cells are very, very small because the diameter of the fibre is very thin, then those little scales are also in proportion very, very tiny, and they don't stick out far enough to scratch your skin. But if you're wearing coarse crossbred wool, those scales, the diameter of the fibre is a lot thicker, the scales are a lot bigger, and they do, even though you can't see them with the naked eye, they stick out far enough to actually scratch your skin. So that's why wool's scratchy. Now, is anyone, time for honesty, has anyone ever shrunk a woolen jumper? Yep. There's a few have, I think over the years probably most of us have. Do you know why it shrunk? Because it got wet? Oh, sheep's out in the paddock, she gets wet. Her wool doesn't shrink. Heat? Oh, she had really hot sunny days. But you're right, she doesn't like the heat very much. Folks, the reason it shrinks is again that woolen fibre and those little scales that are sticking out. Now if you put your jumper in the washing machine or the clothes dryer, or you move it vigorously, what happens is that you're agitating it, you're moving it around, and just like I was moving that, it was a spinning thread, those little fibres actually latch on to each other, those little scales. So you get one over here, one there, one there, one there. Before long they start pulling your jumper up smaller and smaller as they all latch together. And hot water certainly does have an effect, because wool doesn't like hot water, and it goes, woo, didn't like that, so it makes the fibres wriggle. And when those fibres wriggle, of course, they find other fibres and they latch together. So we can take that a step further, of course, and if you've shrunk your jumper and you don't know what to do with it, put it in the washing machine again with some more hot water and some more soap. Leave it there for an hour or so, working away, and then you end up with felt. So you can actually make that shrunken jumper into a bag or a hat, or cut it up and it won't fall apart. Okay, anyone got any questions?
Daddy, listen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What about this?
Oh, that one there is what we call plying. So after we've filled this piece here up, the bobbin, we then take it across there and we put two on there like that, and then we spin it again, and that twists the two fibres together, okay?